Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK Bullets. Today we're going to be reviewing Superman, The City of Tomorrow, Volume 1. Hey everybody, and welcome back to BK's Bullets. As always, I'm your host, Brent, and today we're talking about Superman, The City of Tomorrow, Volume 1, and this is a book that took me a long time to read. After all, it is basically like 16 issues of one-and-done stories from the late 1999 into early 2000s. This collects 4 issues of Superman, Action Comics, The Man of Steel, and the 4th Superman book, Adventures of Superman at the time, which are half of them are gone right now, right? And so they're all basically one and done storylines done by some phenomenal writers and fantastic artists, but it's just not a story, like, bottom line up front, that I'm going to go out and say, you need to read this book. If you're looking for an old 90s, early 2000s nostalgia kick with some Ed McGuinness art in the very, very back, even though he does supply the cover because they're trying to sell it, you got Mike McCone, Doug Mahnke, who else is in here? Humberto Ramos did a cover. Who's this other? Stuart Immonen doing stuff in here. Joe Phillips. You've got the Mike McCone stuff is awesome. You got Lee Bermejo doing a cover here or there. Some early Yannick Paquette. I mean, there's some phenomenal stuff to be found in here for sure, but it's not a blazing storyline or anything that's going to grab you by the neck and make you turn every page. Each story kind of starts off in its own issue and then ends. It's like a one and done storyline, and then you may, with the next issue of that particular title, you may get another pickup of some dangling plot threads from the last issue. The thing this book does poorly is tell you what you are reading. It tells you the name of the story, but it doesn't tell you, like, hey, this is Action Comics number 151, or this is Superman number 95, or anything like that. It just doesn't let you know what it is. The only thing it does let you know is who wrote it, who drew it, and what the name of the story is. So it doesn't really tell you, like, what book you're reading. Now, if you remember all the covers, maybe you could figure it out. Or if you remembered who was on what title at the time, maybe you can figure it out. They do provide you with the covers, which is really nice. Don't have the title treatment. That would be helpful. And then on the back page, they've got the standard, like, this same back page every single time. And it tells you who drew the cover, who inked it, and who colored it. So that is helpful. That's cool. I want to give everybody props to who supplied covers here, but I wish it would just say, like, if this is Superman number 151, just tell me in the bottom corner, or hell, tell me on the back page, right? That would be a whole lot helpful. They do leave in the credits pages and all that stuff is here, so it does tell you, like, what the title of the story is, who's inking it, who's writing it, but it doesn't give you any indication of, like, where you are in time of what title, or to say, like, oh man, I really like how Joe Kelly writes Superman. I know he wrote Action Comics, I think, at the time. I'm guessing, because I know he wrote Action 775, which is a great issue. But does this tell me it's Action Comics? No, not at all. So that's where I think it fails. There's not even a table of contents in the beginning to tell you, like, first we're going to read this book, and then we're going to read this book. It gets even more confusing because the first 4 issues are all these beautiful Phil Jimenez covers from the time, and just doing, like, classic Superman things I think they were relaunching the Superman line at the time. But the City of Tomorrow here in the title really doesn't come in until, like, the last 4 or 5 issues of the book with the Superman Y2k Special. What is Y2k? We'll get into that in a minute. But basically, the City of Tomorrow is what happens after Brainiac triggers this Y2k virus and infects Metropolis and the world with some futuristic technology. Lex Luthor makes a deal with the devil to try and, like, keep it for himself and make himself richer, and ultimately that's how Metropolis is left at the end of the volume. Everything else before then doesn't really have anything to do with it. They're just kind of, like, setting up characters, or, maybe that was the beginning of the relaunch and the Y2K was something they were building towards, but there's no hints of it. Like, Brainiac comes out of nowhere with that Y2K issue. You do have some cool moments in here with Steel, with the Eradicator, with Mongol, introducing you to Imperiex in one issue, and then you also have some things like this newer villainess, Encantadora, I think she is. She's almost reminds me of Red Mist that Bendis was using, but not quite the same, but visually looks a little similar. So it's kind of weird that there's two Red Mist villains that have the same visual power with different effects in the Superman titles 22 years apart. So that's kind of interesting. Y2k, if you're younger than 25, you might not remember it, but at the time, I was in 8th grade when the millennium turned over from 1999 to 2000, and everybody thought that everything was going to go to shit when we hit 2000, January 1st, right after midnight, because all the computers had been programmed to have, in two-digit numbers, basically, like when they started doing computers, 69, 60, 68, 70, 71, 72, 99, 98, 96, that kind of stuff. Never did they put in like 2000, 1999, so that you could then switch to 2000. So everybody's freaking out that your computer system would crash, you'd lose all your digital currency, all your money, the banks would close because all the computers would get confused when you went from 99 to 00. And that was the Y2K bug everybody was fearing. In the end, nothing happened. The only thing that did happen that year was this weird Superman Y2K special in which Brainiac, for whatever reason, is drawn with this 3D model in every single book that the crossover contains at the end here. This terrible, terrible 3D model of Brainiac. So that's kind of confusing. He's right here. Doesn't jive with anything else, and I'm kind of wondering if maybe the artists were happy to let them do it because they didn't have to draw it. Or maybe they did draw it, and then they just 3D modeled over the drawing. But it does look like it was placed in every single book because the one consistent thing throughout all this is that Brainiac has the same model. Yes, that's Electric Blue Superman. You have to read the book to find that out. Should you read this book? I don't really know. I don't really feel like you need to. I think the only thing it really does is lead into the second volume. And I haven't read the second volume yet, so don't take me at my word, but I know that the second volume does end, and then the next volume after that is the Emperor Joker crossover. That's a 9-parter, right? So if you wanted a full year of Superman books from 1999 to 2000, you could get City of Tomorrow Volume 1 and 2 and seek out that older Emperor Joker trade paperback, and you would have it right there. So if you're yearning for a kickback to the days when Superman and Lois were married and both reporters in the Daily Planet, and Jimmy Olsen still used film on his camera, and there were no cell phones in stories or anything like that, then this might be the book for you. It is kind of like the Batman Night Out book above my shoulder here, where it's kind of more one-and-done storylines. So that is an interesting thing to read nowadays when everything is a 6-part story or anything like that. These are, set up beginning, middle, and end in 22 pages. And then you move on to the next one, and then to the next one, and to the next one. So that, I think, contributes to it feeling like a longer read than it really is. You could go read Watchmen and read this. Both of them are really dense, Watchmen especially, but this, being an older book, is very, very dense. It's very wordy. I wouldn't say it's super wordy compared to some 80s books where they have the dialogue and the thought balloons, but I did feel like there were a lot of words on these pages here as opposed to more modern books, which are a little sparser. So in terms of bang for your buck, maybe reading time, it is worth it. It's not a cheap book. It's $40 for this trade paperback, but you might spend a long time reading each issue. And I think that is something, to kind of respect and revere, because today's books, I'm a fast reader, by the way, so maybe this isn't the case for you, but for me, it takes me 5 minutes, in between 5 and 8 minutes to read a 20-page comic book nowadays, because they're light on content and heavy on art, right? Whereas some of these older books, they actually took me about 15 minutes to read all 22 pages here. So there's something to be said about that. So there is a lot of story in here. It's just not one cohesive story that is grab you by the seat of your pants, super exciting, a classic Superman storyline or anything like that. It's just older Superman titles that might fill a niche for you if you're even older than I am, or if you're younger and maybe you want to read comics from that era. Maybe you want to check out Ed McGuinness's first Superman stories in the back of this book here. You can go check out Superman City of Tomorrow. So is it something that I'll ever read again? Probably not. It might sit on the shelf for a little while. Maybe I'll sell it down the line. I'm not sure, but it's not something that I'm like, I'm going to itch to reread any of this entire thing in its entirety. Maybe if there's a story here that I really enjoyed that I want to go back to, I could open it back up, that kind of thing. But all in all, it's not something that I'm going to like recommend to people as a must read. Definitely not. So that's my thoughts on Superman City of Tomorrow Volume 1. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of this book if you've read it, and we will see you guys next time in the Funny Pages.